Hello, everybody. Welcome in to the NBA Front Office Show. We're 2 weeks away from the NBA draft. Things heating up around the NBA offseason. And I guess there's a finals game tonight. Keith, can you confirm that? Is that happening? I don't know.
I can confirm basketball is the best part of basketball. So we're 1-1 in the finals. I hope people don't lose sight. I mean, I get it. I'm getting fired up too. There's a 900 cool things. It feels like stuff's starting to really happen now, which is typical. We're a couple weeks out from the draft. Things are picking up. But yes, we do have an actual finals game tonight. And I'm pretty fired up for it.
No, I am too. I'm joking about. I've seen a lot of people try to downplay it, but I think it's going to be a really exciting game. This is, the Pacers coming back home. They need an energy boost. I think they're going to get it from their home crowd. I still favor, and the betting odds have the Thunder as the favorite, but I think if the Pacers are going to really make a series out of this thing, they've got to get game 3. And I know maybe that sounds funny in a series that's 1-1, but I could see the Thunder winning the next 3. I could see the Thunder winning 3 of the next 4, maybe doing something like that, finishing it off in 6. But if the Pacers win tonight, I think it makes the whole series significantly more interesting and more up in the air if the Pacers can get this one.
I completely agree with that. I think this is a really important game for Indiana. When you have quote unquote taking control of home court in a series or whatever, the last thing you want to do is your first game back at home. You hand it right back. So that's the tough thing. But yeah, I think it's going to be really fun to watch this play out. I think we saw some adjustments from both teams now, and now we kind of pulled our adjustments. Let's see what the adjustments are to those adjustments. That's the fun part of playoff basketball, and then we go forward from there. So it should be a fun one. But I'm with you. I think if the Thunder win tonight, this could be. I think it was the starters who coined it a scumbag sweep, which was where you lost the first one,
right,
but then you won the next 4, as opposed to the gentleman sweep, which is like winning the first 3, then you lose one, and then you take the next one and win in 5. I think that was back when they were the starters. It might even been when they're the basketball Jones, the no dunks crew. But yeah, that's we could be looking at that if the Thunder win tonight.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's what we could be staring down here if the Thunder get this one. So I will fully throw my support behind the Pacers tonight and them getting this win because more basketball is a good thing. Now,
that's exactly it. I just want to say that.
Yeah.
I don't care who wins the series either way. I just want, give me 6 or 7 ideally games of this series, and I'll be very, very happy. We're down to it now. We're down to, at the most, we have 5 games left in the NBA season. I wouldn't mind getting as many of those as we can actually have.
I would like to postpone the start of the basketball drought for as long as I possibly can, because I'll tell you what, people talk about the NBA offseason, how short it is and all that. No, it is so long, so unbelievably long the NBA offseason is, and I do not want to start that anytime soon. Summer League gives us a little bit of fun. We're going to have Eurobasket this year, but it's a long summer for the NBA once things all slow down. But that said, we've got a lot to talk about today, going around the roster moves and things of that nature, and it's only appropriate that we started off like this.
Fire!
Oh, the Kevin Cannon. We got to fire this thing off. Kevin Durant, according to Shams Charania, is already being linked to a number of specific teams, including the San Antonio Spurs, the Houston Rockets, the Wolves, the Miami Heat. Some interesting landing spots for Durant to potentially wind up with on the trade market. The Suns are rumored to be looking for draft capital this year for players they can add with Devin Booker, as well as rotation pieces. This market is going to start heating up. I feel like every day we're going to get significant steps forward in this process. And I think it's only a matter of time before Kevin Durant finds himself on another team. And I still think it's going to happen by draft night. Maybe not, as we've said, maybe not officially completed, submitted to the league on draft night, but enough to where we know what pick the Suns really are going to be using on draft night.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Or we'll know, hey, the Suns got this pick, but it's actually going to another team in a subsequent trade or whatever. But yeah, and I think that package is being very realistic. You're not getting the number 2 pick from the Spurs. I think we've put that to bed, but you could get the 14th pick, maybe a couple players from the Spurs that could be helpful for you. And that's it, right? We've talked about this. Feels like really for 6-ish months now of if you're going to make these moves, this is how you do it. You break the contract up into multiple players. When you trade a guy like Kevin Durant, you're looking to break that contract into 2, 3, maybe even 4 guys if you can. That's $50 million. So that's where you could go with this. We know Houston is supposedly on the list. Houston controls a lot of, including in this draft, but controls other picks from Phoenix going out. So that could be a way you kind of bridge the gap there. If the Rockets are like, man, we don't want to give up too many guys in our young core, well, they might be able to do that through saying, all right, hey, let's kind of plus this offer up with draft picks instead.
Right.
You get into like Minnesota and New York, your challenges are going to be just the matching salary gets difficult for those teams. They're going to be either over the apron, which would necessitate a third team, or tight to the apron, which would probably still necessitate a third team. So that's going to get a little tricky. My gut tells me I think he's going to either Miami or to San Antonio. Feels like Miami is like, we're not cool with this. Like, let's sit it out one more year. Just let our cap sheet get clean and then go hunting in 2026. It feels like let's try to reverse the bad feelings and let's try to get this done right now. And they've got a number of interesting ways they can get to the salary match for a guy like KD. And most importantly, they've got quite a good chunk of wiggle room underneath that first apron as well.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second then, because we've spent some time talking about the Spurs offer and what that would be. And, maybe it's a Devin Vassell. Probably there's Keldon Johnson involved. We've talked about the pieces, Harrison Barnes, maybe, one of the guys going back, the 14th pick in the draft. What do you think is the most likely Miami offer? Because as you said, you're looking at their cap sheet, there's a number of different ways they can get there. And especially attractive has got to be that Terry Rozier, not fully guaranteed contract. Boy, Keith, you could save some big money on that one.
Yeah, like $5. That's the weirdest thing. Yeah, pull it up. There it is on the screen. Of his 26.6, 24.9 is fully guaranteed. So all but like 1.6 million. So yeah, big time. Which is funny for the Suns. That does actually amount to like $12 million in like real dollars
because of the tax penalties.
Yeah, because of the tax penalties. So as much as we're laughing, but yeah, here's the big thing though. That is an expiring contract. Duncan Robinson's going to opt into his contract. We all know this. Expiring contract, even if you do let it become fully guaranteed. Kyle Anderson, non-guaranteed in 26, 27, effectively an expiring contract. The one where it gets a little weird is if it was like, yeah, we need you to take Andrew Wiggins. I don't know that that's something the Suns, but even if it's Wiggins and or Wiggins and Robinson, because I think that gets you there from the Heat side. All right, we took on $30 million next year because Wiggins will very likely pick up that option. That's not the end of the world because Andrew Wiggins, that's overpay for him, but he could still play.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, and we still got to ride out Bradley Beal's contract one more year too. So let's just ride out the two of them. And then guess what? Then we got Devin Booker and boatloads of cap space if we kind of play this right, if we are the Suns in the summer of 2027. But there's just a lot of expiring money on Miami. One place they fall a little short is the draft capital piece.
Right.
They could do one of these where, hey, we're going to make our pick in the first round because they have the Warriors pick. I think it's the 20th pick, maybe. But we're going to make that
correct.
Pick. And we are going to but that guy, we're picking him for you. Like that could be the way it goes. So that could be how this plays out as well. Because this one may be one where it's better for this to actually occur. Not even maybe, it definitely is better for this to occur after the league year changes over. So that could be one where we see a little bit of an agreed to and it's delayed. But yeah, it just feels like it's going to be them or the Spurs. And maybe a mystery team jumps in, but of the teams that were mentioned, they seem like the cleanest fits and the one that makes the most sense.
Yeah. I still think basketball wise, for forgetting about timeline stuff, Houston makes a ton of sense to me just because Kevin Durant is exactly what that roster was screaming for in the first round of the playoffs. Nobody
Yep.
could score in the half court because they just couldn't hit a shot. So there, that makes some sense. But Houston has been so steadfast on this. No, we like our young core. We don't want to trade for any veterans. On this type of mentality, uh, the more they say it, the less likely it is that it's, smokescreen, that it's just, playing the game. So I guess there's still some questions there with that. But San Antonio makes sense. Miami makes sense. What's interesting though is the team that was missing in all of this. The team that jumped out to me is the Toronto Raptors. Now there was the little bit in Sean's article about, other teams could get involved and stuff, but finding there being 5 prominent teams and the Raptors were not listed among them, I was a little bit surprised by that.
Does he make sense for them though? Like, I think, and I'm not saying you've forgotten this because Lord knows I'm the one who forgot De'Aaron Fox.
Is De'Aaron Fox on the Raptors now? What's happening?
Brandon Ingram is there and
Sure.
signed an extension. And I think that's gotten a little forgotten because he never played for them, right? They acquired him and then they basically were like, just take the rest of the year to rehab your ankle injury. So I just don't know that it makes a ton of sense. Yes, Kevin Durant is better than Brandon Ingram. I'm not suggesting otherwise. We have Scotty Barnes. You have Brandon Ingram. I don't. That starts to get to be a very weird grouping because I would assume if you're trading for Durant, like it would be like, all right, RJ Barrett and Jakob Poeltl probably have to be the starting point in any offer.
And then you got to go find a center.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe if you're Toronto, you're like, hey, we're not giving you the 9th pick. We're going to keep their 7th pick, whatever pick they have. We're going to keep it. And then we're going to go, in our own direction on that. But I think I don't know, Barnes, Ingram, and Durant gets to be a really weird fit together because that's a lot of guys who do a lot of very similar stuff with the ball. And that gets a little bit of a wonky fit to make work.
Well, maybe that's the reason why Toronto wasn't listed then among those teams. Maybe it is just concerned that we know they would be interested in Giannis Antetokounmpo. Maybe their interest in Kevin Durant is a little bit overstated. But speaking of Giannis, a little bit of an actual update. The Milwaukee Bucks not really looking to trade Giannis and will only trade him if, and this is not a surprise, but if he actually asks out. But Keith, it feels like with each passing day, the likelihood of Giannis asking out is diminishing. Now, everything though is there's always that sort of qualifier that, well, but he could always ask out over the next couple of weeks, and that could still happen. But it does feel like each day we're stepping a little further away from that ledge.
Yeah. So 2 kind of updates here. One was the one that's very straightforward was Giannis responded to a social media post,
right,
and basically was like, yeah, let's get back there. And this is two days in a row that at least we've had reports of Giannis basically being like, hey, I want to get back there, like, Bucks, let's do this kind of type of talk, direct from Giannis himself. So that's okay. Let's see. Now, Shams' qualifier was Giannis could see how the start of the offseason goes for Milwaukee and then make his decision. Here's why I kind of throw that out the window a little bit. Let's say, let's just use the Spurs as an example because they've been linked to both players. Let's say if you're the Spurs, you're like, man, we would have really liked to have Giannis, but we pivoted to Durant because Giannis hadn't made himself available. You're not getting both of them. Like, that's not realistic. So then what's happened is if you wait and like, let's see what the Bucks do here in the first week of free agency, it might be really, really hard to make a Giannis trade. He makes $54 million next season. That's not an easy number to just go match salary on, especially when you start talking about hard caps and everything else that could get triggered. So you're in a spot where it's a little like, if you're doing it, man, you better do it within the next couple of weeks. And let's start the off season with you available. Because if we wait too deep in, it's just going to get messy. Yes, I know the Bucks traded for Dame, like on the eve of training camp almost, but that was a very different story, and it took a very specific package. And it was also, let's remember, a very complicated 3-team trade that had to ultimately be done that involved multiple guys moving around from teams and all over the place. So I'm just not fully bought in that Giannis is going to all of a sudden wake up, June 29th and be like, actually, yeah, I do want to be traded.
Well, I mean, ideally, if he does want out, he makes that known ahead of the draft, because that makes this whole situation not easy, because it's certainly not trading a player with that kind of salary, but easier than if he waited until, I don't know, July 10th. He kicks off Summer League and says, I want out. Okay, you've done all your free agent shopping and all that. He looks and he goes, oh, well, we just lost Gary Trent Jr. and Brooke Lopez and we added nothing back. Okay, I want out, right?
Sure.
Like, he could, but it's more difficult for teams but I do wonder if it's out there that Giannis could be asking out. Would that cause teams to hold off on making moves if they felt like there was a decent chance, at least, that Giannis was really going to be in play? Like, could we see the whole Kevin Durant trade market wind up being kind of put on pause while they wait did Milwaukee do enough to placate Giannis? No, they didn't. Okay, cool. Let's go try to work this out. And then if they do, okay, now we pivot to Kevin Durant. Could we see that type of thing where the Kevin Durant market holds off waiting for a Giannis decision to become, permanent or official or whatever? That could happen as well.
Yeah, the other thing is, do the Bucks kind of put it out there of like, hey, like he maybe still like we want this kind of to hold teams up a little bit. Like you were saying, like don't do everything right away, because if he does change his mind, we don't want to have it be much less of a market
Sure.
available. So and then you got to wonder, like, does a team like Brooklyn I mean, we know they would like to get Giannis themselves, but do they hold some cap space in reserve?
Mm-hmm.
If they're like, man, we could do this to eat a contract now, guess what? We can do that to eat a contract in September too. Let's just hold, and then let's see, where this kind of goes with this. Because, again, you don't have to use all your cap space up to the floor until right before the start of the regular season. That's when the penalty of you get a cap hold put on your books for the difference, and then you have 24 hours to use it, or you lose out on the tax disbursement if you're not a tax team. So there's no real pressure on Brooklyn to immediately use all of it. So maybe they could be like, hey, we're still here as a facilitator if there's a Giannis trade that comes later. I don't know. I guess I'm in prediction brain here, but like, I kind of think he's just staying in Milwaukee. Like, I think he's just going to say, I wonder if he looked around and was like, man, unless I go to the Thunder, the West is going to be a battle to get through. If he goes to OKC, like, all bets are off. Like, forget it. But so that's hard. Why not just stay in the East? Like the Knicks, I know we're going to get to them. They can't even hire a coach. Like, they look kind of stupid now. Then you have the Celtics are taking a step back. Darius Garland's missing the start of the year for the Cavs. Pacers are good, but I don't know that the Bucks are like, oh no, the Pacers. I get it. They knocked them out the last couple of years in the playoffs, but and then I wonder if Giannis is like, hey, if Dame can get back late March, maybe early April, a couple weeks to ramp up for the playoffs, we make the right moves around me. Let's go. Like, why not us? And I'm not going to blame him if that's his thinking there either.
I don't think there's any way that the Bucks can do anything this summer that would make Giannis say, here we go, we're at the top of the East now. Next year, you have some contracts that maybe fall off the books and sure, things like that, and maybe that gives you more flexibility. But for me, if Giannis is going to stay in Milwaukee, I think he has to approach it as, hey, if we can make a run, great, but most likely this next season is not going to be it for us. But maybe there's enough flexibility in the summer of 2026 to go make something happen. It could be the East is so wide open and Giannis is so good that they're still able to make some kind of a run. But I don't see a lot of a pathway for this Bucks team to really improve or solidify their standing in the East. But like you said, it's also a much easier path in the Eastern Conference right now than certainly in the West. And so maybe the most attractive trade options are in the West. And if you're Giannis, maybe you just say, I don't want to get into all of that. And can the Knicks really trade for Giannis? Not, I mean, they have the draft capital. Toronto's got some interesting pieces, but Miami, of course, will be interested, but if there's not an easy trade partner in the East either, maybe it is the best. Maybe the best decision is to essentially take kind of a gap year with the Bucks, and at least that's the way I see it. I just don't see this Bucks team, even in a diminished Eastern Conference, really making a run unless they've got some ace up their sleeve that I'm not expecting.
Yeah, I let me be very clear. I don't either, but I could see him thinking that
Sure.
I can do that, right?
Yeah.
These guys get where they get to because they have supreme confidence in themselves. I'll also say this because you made a really good point that I want to touch on. A Giannis trade has to be pretty draft pick heavy because the Bucks are going to have to rebuild if they trade Giannis. There's no let's reset here. There's none of that. I mean, we like Damian Lillard plenty, but it ain't happening, right? Like we're not resetting. At best, you're going to reset to Portland levels of maybe we're a playing tournament team around Dame. So you're trading Giannis. You need multiple draft picks back, young players, whatever it is. Whereas in a KD trade, the Suns have made it very clear they have no interest in rebuilding. And KD's 6 years older than Giannis with, I would say, a lengthier injury history.
Sure.
Giannis has missed time, but KD's missed a lot of time. And KD only has the 1 year under contract, where at least with Giannis, you have one more year and then a $62 million player option hanging out there in a couple years. So you're in a spot where it's like, all right, I feel pretty good if I go all in on a Giannis trade where from the Suns standpoint, it's like, yeah, we can't expect a draft pick heavy package back, nor do they really want it. So that's where, yeah, you would start eliminating some of the Giannis suitors like New York, like Miami, because they just don't have the draft pick heavy trade to offer back.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where it gets, pretty tough for some of these teams to actually get there on Giannis. But we mentioned the Knicks. Let's talk about them. The Mavs officially denied the Knicks on a Jason Kidd offer to potentially bring him in as the coach of the New York Knicks. So now 3 strikes. They went for Chris Finch. The Wolves said no. Ime Udoka, I don't think the Knicks even finished saying the words Ime Udoka before the Rockets swatted that away, said, hell no, that's not happening. And now the Dallas Mavericks, it took them some time. It was interesting that it kind of lingered out there for a couple of days before the Mavs officially shut it down.
Well, I think it was they were waiting on the Knicks to actually ask.
Right.
And I think by the time that happened, but yeah, I hear
But
you.
they could have, the Mavs could have made that known.
Yeah.
They could have just whispered to Mark Stein, hey, there's no way in hell we're letting the Knicks talk to him.
Right?
Kind of, but nothing was definitive, though.
Yeah, it was Dallas would be expected to say no or whatever the wording was. But but now it's done.
Now it's done, right? It's done. So Jason Kidd of the Knicks cannot happen. He's under contract with the Mavs. They're not going to allow it. That's it. That's over. So now what do the Knicks do? And does this suggest that the Knicks fired Tom Thibodeau without actually having a real plan in place of what they were going to do? Or maybe this is just a step in that plan. And this is, hey, we would like to get these guys, Finch, Kidd, Udoka, whoever, we'd like to get these guys. And if not, then we'll pivot over here and we'll look at these coaches. What does this tell us about the Knicks?
I mean, they look kind of foolish, in my opinion. I think they really look dumb here because it looks like the plan was one of these 3 coaches will want to come here bad enough that they will make it uncomfortable if their team says no. And it doesn't seem like any of the 3 coaches really felt like, yeah, I really want to go there that badly. I'm sure there was some level of interest, but at least from Finch and Kidd, because there has been reporting that Ime Udoka was like, no, I'm not interested at all. And he might have looked at him and been like, hey, I build hard-nosed, defensive-minded teams. I can't do that with Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns, as great as they are, just not what I do as a coach. Chris Finch, I think, could have really made it work. I think that would have been pretty good there. So, yeah, it's just, this is really this is not good for the Knicks because I feel like there was almost a sense of arrogance of we're in the East Finals. We have a really good team. You should want to come here. And if your team says no, or it's like, we don't really want to, well, then you need to make it clear you don't want to coach that team anymore. And then they'll have to acquiesce and get us there. And it's like, I don't know. It doesn't, I don't think, I think they mismanaged this whole thing in a really poor way.
I thought John Krasinski for The Athletic, who does a great job covering the Wolves, brought up a fantastic point about all of this and where the Knicks may have missed on this. And he's put out there on X, said, when you fire a coach for making the conference finals, you send a clear message, it's championship or bust. That's an admirable ambition, but it leaves zero margin for error. Not a great situation to walk into. Now, of course, there's a lot more context around why the Wolves or why the Knicks decided to move on from Tom Thibodeau beyond just, he made the conference finals and not the NBA finals. It wasn't just that, obviously, but it's also fair. If you're Chris Finch, if you are Ime Udoka, if you're Jason Kidd, and you're looking at the Knicks situation, you're saying Tom Thibodeau just did what the Knicks were built to do. He beat the Celtics, and he got the team to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 25 years, and that wasn't good enough. He got fired. What kind of job security am I going to have if I don't make the finals in year one, maybe year two? Am I then gone as well? And while job security and NBA head coaching jobs are two things that absolutely do not go hand in hand, I would imagine that could be a tough situation to voluntarily jump into, knowing that it's finals or bust, and the path, even in a more wide open Eastern Conference, can certainly be perilous getting there. So that may be a factor in all of this too. Not a lot of job security in New York if it truly is finals or bust, and that's the mentality now.
Yeah, and I'll even take it a step further. I mean, John, perfect way of laying it out. But the Knicks said it in the press release when they hired Tibbs, right? It was our sole focus is on winning a championship. All right, I mean, we would hope that's the sole focus for all 30 teams.
Sure.
Might be many, many years away, while others might be closer. But like when you put it out there like that, and your actions are, this wasn't enough, that says, yeah, you better come in and get us. You need to get us even closer to that. Otherwise, we may move on from you too. And let's be honest, James Dolan has an awful lot of money. It sounds crazy when we get into, we've talked this with the Suns in the past. Like they're paying 3 guys to not coach for them, and all the things that we say and stuff. Yeah, that's true. But to some extent, when you've got the money, what do you care? Like it's almost like doesn't matter to me. Like I just want to win, right? These are hobbies for these folks, for the vast majority of people who own these teams. And it's like, I want to win. Like I want to be the one who's getting the trophy handed to me. Let's go. So yeah, now my thing is, where do you go next? Like, do you just keep going down the list? There's 26 more coaches you could go after. Run out of ones that have.
What other coach can you try to poach from a team?
You're gonna go to the Heat and be like, Eric Spoelstra, hey Pop, I know you just retired from coaching, but you interested in doing it over here and stuff like. And I'm being silly about it, but like, sure. I don't know. Like now it's you're. I don't want to say there's not good options left because that's being very, very unfair. Sure. There are definitely good options left, but you've backed yourself into a corner a little bit where now it's like, now we got to kind of almost come out with, all right, here's like, and it's going to be, oh, we got the guy we wanted all along and all this and that. And then, but the other thing too is like, probably going to hire that coach and then you're not going to hear from the front office because they're not going to be the ones up there. It'll probably just be the coach up there, all right, hey, here, PR person, new coach is here, welcome, Coach X, new coach of the New York Knicks. He's, available to take your questions. And it'll just be questions asked of the new guy. And that's a tough part of it too, when your front office is not visible. That's not a criticism on the job they've done. I think Leon Rose and his entire staff have done a great job building that Knicks roster up and putting them in a position to succeed, but they're not there. They're not publicly visible and answering questions. And that becomes then a part of the coach job that, quite frankly, 29 other coaches don't have to deal with because their owners, their front office takes those types of questions from them.
You know who does a great job with that? It's Frank Vogel. Frank Vogel is so good at dealing with press and disarming questions. It's really tough to really get him on a curveball or anything like that. That said, I don't think he fixes, he's similar to Thibodeau, defense first type of guy. The offense isn't all that imaginative. So you're kind of, going back down the same path. But the one good thing here for the Knicks is that even if they aren't able to poach a coach from another team, there are some experienced, that seems to be the desire here, is to land an experienced head coach. There are some experienced head coaches that are out there on the market right
Yeah.
now. Vogel being one, Mike Budenholzer. Again, not saying these are all great options, but Mike Budenholzer is out there. Michael Malone is out there. Mike Brown is out there. Right? There's
Jeff
guys.
Van Gundy, if they
Jeff Van
wanted to
Gundy, yes,
jump in the
absolutely.
throwback machine, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So there's experienced head coaches that are out there that they'll be able to get. So I do wonder if this was the pie in the sky. Hey, let's swing for the fences. If we can get Jason Kidd, fantastic. For whatever reason, if they have him at the top of their list, try for it, knowing that you've got that safety net of that pool of experienced coaches that are sitting out there. From that sense, if that's the mentality of the Knicks, okay, I can kind of get what they were up to. But otherwise, I think you're right. It does look a little messy now that they've tried 3 different times to get interviews with coaches that are already with teams and been shot down every single time.
Yeah, if it was just Jason Kidd, it'd be like, all right, they
Sure.
had their dream target, they didn't get them, and fine. Or any one of the 3, they didn't get. Okay, I have no problem. Like, shoot for the moon? You'll end up among the stars, or whatever that quote we tell kids is to encourage them. Like, it's like, fine, go for your dream target. If you don't get them, all right, then you pivot and move on. But when it's like we went to 3 others, and like now it's like, man, we're stuck. And I'm not at all worried about whoever they do hire being like, well, I was the 4th choice guy. Because you know what? There's only 30 of these jobs. No one's going to care about that. Like, just, give me the job and let's go. Let's go to work. But yeah, weird times for the Knicks for sure.
All right, let's jump over to the Mavs. They're expected to re-sign Kyrie Irving this summer. Obviously, there was talk about Kyrie getting kind of like a max deal or a max adjacent deal this coming year. Obviously, the torn ACL changes things. He does have a 42.9, so almost $43 million player option, but it sounded like this is going to be a new deal for Kyrie, and they're going to, put their faith in him that he's going to recover. He'll be back, maybe January, maybe February. Hard to say, the exact timeline right now because we're so early in the recovery here. But the Mavs believe Kyrie's going to be back, and they're going to bet on that, and they're going to try and find somebody to hold them over at the guard position in the meantime. Do you think this is the right decision, though, if you re-sign him to a new deal right now, even with the injury?
Yeah, I would. I'd do it and just hope for the best injury wise. But with that, I think Kyrie was so good for them really since the time he got to Dallas. Helped them obviously get to an NBA Finals. Then last year was playing one of the best seasons he's ever had. Like, I just thought, especially in the wake of the Luka trade, I thought he in not even just the Luka trade, but Luka being out, then traded. I thought Kyrie was awesome all year long. And I was beating the drum for like, this guy's like, this is zoning in on maybe first team all NBA level stuff. The team performance just wasn't there. So it was like, all right, maybe that's going to go a little far, but I really thought he was having an outstanding season. So I would hope, let's, we maybe you want to get a little team control on a 3rd year. Sure. If you go there, if you went to a 4th year, if it was going to be 4 years, I would have to have team control on that 4th year. Either it's heavily protected, non-guaranteed, or it's just a straight team option. I'd want it on a 3rd year, but yeah, 40 million plus for Kyrie. Yeah, I think the figure that was thrown out was 120 million. For what it's worth, that's what my projection has been on Kyrie, was 120 million over 3 years, which kind of matches the deal he had before with Dallas. Maybe you throw some heavier incentives in there than what were in there before, and you kind of played out that way. But I don't want to say what other choice do you have, because the other choice is see you later. Good luck wherever you go next. But I don't know. I'm not going to mess around with this one too much. I think he's too important, even coming off the injury, to play too many games.
Well, and this is where also, if you do want to try to get that team controlled on the 3rd year or something, this is the market to do it in. Because, all right, Kyrie, your other option is don't pick up your player option and you can leave. Where are you going to go? You're going to go back to Brooklyn? Because that's really the only team out there with any money. Now, again, I don't think it will be a contentious negotiation or anything like that. But the fact that there's essentially no dollars out there for Kyrie on the free agent market, aside from, the MLE for some of these teams, that I think aids the Mavs in terms of the leverage. But once again, I don't think this is going to be a strong arm back and forth style negotiation between these two.
Yeah, I completely agree. This came from Mark Stein. He was on the yeah, I don't know if they pronounce it DLLS or if they just say Dallas Sports, but it's like that 4-letter thing like
Right.
DNVR is.
Right.
But like he was there for their Mavs show that they do. And one of the other things he mentioned that I thought was interesting is they'd prefer not to trade Daniel Gafford or PJ Washington too.
Mhm.
Like that they would prefer to keep them. Now, prefer to keep them can be kind of loaded language because
Sure.
it's like that's the we'd prefer to keep them, but yes, if you want to give me multiple first round picks for Daniel Gafford, I guess we'll have to give them up then, kind of thing. But I think that's more of a hey, you're not sneaking in here and swiping either one of these guys from us, and that's
I'm pretty sure
fair.
they texted that directly to Rob Pelinka.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're not getting them. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, be prepared to pay the Dalton Connect in a pick package. You better throw in something more, my friend, with that. But yeah, it's that's to me, that's what it is. It's right. Like you better make a real offer for either one of these guys, or they're going to be part of a bigger thing that the Mavericks do,
Sure.
where it's getting them there somewhere else. And I've had people say, like, what do they need Daniel Gafford for? You have Lively and Davis, and you're going to have Cooper Flag, which then is why do you need PJ Washington? But they have every intention of playing big. Like they're going to
Mhm.
play big. So now you go in, your 4 big rotation to start the year is Lively, Davis, Gafford, and Washington. I'll take it. Like that's pretty good, right? That's probably better than that's
Better
honestly,
than
I
most
would say
teams.
that's the best front court depth in the entire league
Yeah.
right there. So, and Lively and Davis aren't exactly guys who have been pictures of health either. So I would want maybe one of the two of them goes, but I don't know. I'm not going to be shocked if this is. Let's see where things develop for us. If we need to move one to get a guard, all right, then maybe we can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's jump over to your Boston Celtics, Keith.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
What's that?
A lot of stuff on
A
this.
lot of stuff. Yeah, I was just seeing something that popped up. I don't recall exactly where it came from. The bottom line is that the Celtics are looking to trade Hauser, Porzingis, Holiday, but teams are talking Jaylen Brown, Derek White. Maybe not a surprise. The Celtics are saying, hey, you would want to trade for these guys. Everybody's like, no. We want to trade for those guys over there. So that'll be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out. But I know there's other stuff. This is your territory. So fire away.
Yeah, and I mean you hit on the big one. So let's start with Jaylen Brown. The team announced today he did have surgery on his knee. It was one of those debridement surgeries. So in street clothes, Jeff Stotts over on Twitter. Excellent follow. We pump him all the time on this show. If you want to know what does that actually mean and what does that mean in terms of NBA, realities of returning and all that. He basically put out there that says to him, he had to have part of the meniscus removed, that a repair wasn't there. But he said meniscus is very dependent on how big is the tear, where is the tear, what is it, shape of the tear, all these things that come in there. So anyway, here's the best news from that. The Celtics said in that release should be ready for training camp with no limitations, which that's very strong wording in an injury release.
Yeah.
Normally it's updates will be provided as necessary, from the team. And this was very clear, like, hey, he'll be ready to go. Now, you could argue, well, they did that because there's already Jason Tatum's out, and that'll stop the inevitable panic of like, what's happening? Why is everybody injured? So there we go with that. Now to the trade stuff. Shams was the one who had, and I think it's just there's some logic in this too. Yeah, they'd rather move Porzingis, Holiday, or Hauser, not the main guys in the rotation. I think we're clear at this point. Celtics' best 3 players are Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Derek White.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else is kind of orbits around those 3. So then it becomes, all right, those guys, especially Porzingis and Holiday, are on pretty big contracts. $30 million for Porzingis, $32 million, I think, for Holiday and change. So, all right, now we got to find a deal for them. Let's see where that goes. Hauser is making like $10 million bucks. And here's the thing that's really important to know, that can fit into all kinds of trade exceptions, mid-level exception. He is, to me, the single most likely to be traded guy on the Celtics simply because of the amount he makes and the role he plays for the team, and the fact that they have Baylor Shireman, who they're ready to just plug in there and be like, hey, go be Hauser. He's not the dead-eye shooter Hauser is, but he could do a little bit more. And quite frankly, with Tatum being out for most, if not all of next year, you need guys who can do a little bit more with the ball in their hands. Then it gets to Holiday and Porzingis. What are we going to do there? Porzingis, there's a lot of back and forth. Some are like, his value's kind of low because he's been hurt. He had this illness, but it's an expiring contract. He was awesome the year before. So who knows? And then Holiday, just a lot of money for a guy his age. It's not the 32.4 million this year. That's all he had, and he was an expiring deal. Teams would be lining up left and right, I think, to trade for him.
Sure.
It's that $71 million that, or 72 million total that's owed to him over the next years after that.
Is it fair to say as well with a guy like Drew Holiday that, say, and not that they're in the same tier of player, but Kevin Durant, his game, you would, if you're an opposing team looking to trade for an older player, and let's say you've got to give Kevin Durant a 2-year deal from here, you'd feel more confident in how Kevin Durant's game is going to age, given the smoothness, his ability to shoot over the top of players. That's not going to go away, versus Drew Holiday, where the primary benefit of his game is defense, and we know the defense can start to slip as a player gets older. So could that be a bit of a factor too, where what it is that makes Drew Holiday is also something that can be more susceptible than some other skill sets to age?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a great point that, if there's slippage on the defensive end, Drew Holiday is just no longer nearly as valuable a player because he's nowhere near what he was on the offensive end. He'll still have the occasional night where it's like, oh man, throwback. But we see that with all kinds of older players. I mean, the go-to is Kobe scored 60 points in his last game because he could summon it one last time and go. Kobe did not score 60 points per game in his last season, which obviously would be insane. But like, older players can find it and bring it and have those throwback nights where it's like, man, we got one more night out of this guy. Like, that's pretty good. Jamal Crawford's last game going for 50, right? Or 60. I can't remember what he went for, but he went for a ton in his last game. Like we see those things happen with older players. I think his main value is defense. And here's something that changed even from year one as a Celtic to year two. He wasn't really defending the smaller, quicker point guards anymore. They were putting him very regularly on the bigger wings, even sometimes on the bigs, because he holds up really well. Now, that's great. If he can do that for another year or 2 years, you almost kind of, that final year, you're like, hey, whatever, that's the price we paid for getting 2 other good years out of him. But offensively, he's mostly a spot-up shooter now. Do a little bit with the ball in his hands. Still a really good decision maker, but he's not breaking guys down off the dribble and getting into the paint for driving kicks or anything like that. So that's where you're it's like we've been saying for a while. Porzingis may have this kind of like wide market of teams because of what he can do and the expiring deal. Holiday's market is probably narrower, but for the teams that are really like, man, we're Drew Holiday away, it probably makes a lot more sense for those teams. One thing that has been kind of clear throughout this, though, is the Celtics are not in a place where they feel like we have to give up picks to get off these guys. And I think they'll hold on to them longer than giving up draft picks because they already have one pick that's frozen. Their 2032 pick is already frozen. Yes, they could, as I call it, thaw it out and get it freed up. But it's frozen right now. They don't need to be in a spot where, hey, we're trading other picks because, just to get off this money immediately. It has to be the right kind of deal.
What do they have to do to thaw it? Just drop below that second-tier apron, and then it's released
3 out
again?
of 4 years.
For 3 out of 4 years.
Yeah, it's very similar to like the repeater tax.
Okay.
Where as long as you're out for a while, then you're good. So,
take the blow dryer to it. Thaw it out.
You throw it in the sink, and
there you go.
Let it do its thing.
Yeah, so, there it is.
Yeah. Anybody who's cooked that first Thanksgiving knows how that works with the turkey.
Oh God, have you ever done that where you don't take it out early enough because you underestimate how long it takes to thaw?
Yeah. We completely blew our first Thanksgiving on our own, and like we didn't even we ended up going out and buying turkey instead because we were like, it's just not going to make it. So
sometimes it's the lessons that we learn. It's the way it goes.
It's all part of growing up.
Yep.
Then when you get old like us, like that baby out in plenty of time. Let that thing sit in the fridge for a couple of days and it'll be okay.
Yep. Exactly. Gotta,
Then you got to
gotta plan
rearrange the
ahead
shelves in your fridge because it doesn't fit
because it doesn't
right.
fit
Yeah,
anywhere.
and
And
then the milk's
yep,
not where you usually keep it, and it just gets yeah.
yep. See, now
Just
I'm
go,
getting hungry though.
just go with just hit up Honey Baked Ham. Like
Yeah.
they do it for you. Like
Keep it
there you go.
simple. Keep it
Yep.
simple. Even if you really want to go like go make up some nice carne asada or something like that. Let's go there. That's my pick. But all right. Anything else that we need to wrap up the Celtics before we move on to Philly here?
Yeah, it just a lot of people have said they think they could also be busy just around
Hmm.
draft week as well. It is funny. I think it was Brian Windhorst said like Shams kind of I don't know if he outed Shams a little bit, but he's like Shams already said he's prepared to work his hardest draft week
Yeah.
versus like free agency. Now part of that is no one's sitting by you and I will obviously be sitting here waiting, but no one's sitting like at 6 p.m. like oh my God, where is Brooke Lopez going? Right? Like all respect to Brooke Lopez, but like
Sure.
it says to get your wheels turning like maybe other years with free agents. So yeah, it's gonna be trade stuff. And I would say draft week is really like the few days ahead of the draft all the way through to the 30th. Like feels like draft week, like so like 23rd to like the 30th window
Hmm.
feels like that's the draft week window. But it does sound like things may come earlier than they usually do. And I think so much of that is because we're going to be so heavy trade focused.
Yes,
This off.
exactly. And a lot of that'll happen draft night. And remember, draft nights we get to say now because
Yeah.
it's the 2-night draft and all that.
And unlike free agency, you can agree to, as long as it's not signing trades, you can agree to a trade if it's just a straight trade and say, yeah, we agree to it, but it can't be made until
Hmm.
July 1st without getting in trouble. So you're not worried. Whereas if it is like teams lined up to sign Brooke Lopez, they don't want to jump the gun because the NBA has cracked down on teams in
Hmm.
recent years more so than they had in the past. So yeah, so yeah, it's what people always say to me. They're like, yeah, that little dead period between the draft and the start of free agency. I'm like, it's not dead period for people who have to update cap sheets and everything
Right.
else. It's a very busy week, but yes, that time when there's no real strict stuff happening. Yeah, we could see a lot of stuff go down. Yeah, 2-night draft, man. We're excited. Let's
go.
get into the draft because we got one draft topic.
Yeah, let's go there. So the Sixers with the third pick. There's a number of names they've been connected to, VJ Edgecombe being one of them, but there's also some talk about maybe the Sixers could trade back a few slots with this pick, still get a really good player, and then maybe pick up some kind of additional asset. So it kind of becomes, as much as we talk, San Antonio, could they move number 2? Could they not? This is starting to feel more and more like the draft is really going to start with the 76ers at pick number 3.
Completely agree with that. I think we are Cooper flagged them. They could announce that today and
Sure,
just start the
it's done.
draft with the Spurs at 2. And then I think we could probably very quickly just announce Dylan Harper to the Spurs and move on there as well. That one's like that much, little smidgen less
Mhm.
than flag to the Mavericks is
Basically,
done.
if the Bucks call up the Spurs and say, "We'll give you Giannis for number 2," like
That starts the
maybe,
then okay. You still want us to pick Dylan Harper and then just announce we're trading him to you? Like I
right?
don't want that to go down. But yeah, the Sixers at 3, and part of it is just weird spot for a team to have the third pick because this is a team that if Embiid and Paul George can play, they're a playoff team. Like that,
Hmm.
that simple. Those two and Tyrese Maxey, no matter what you do, they may not be the top team in the East. I mean, they could be. I wouldn't put it against them. If you can pull off that one healthy year out of Embiid and George, this team could make the
And
finals.
don't forget, Jaron McCain was fantastic. So you get
Yeah.
him back healthy too. Sure,
Yeah.
they could get in the mix.
And there's already a couple guys already on the roster that are kind of interesting or expected if they pick up their options to be on the roster. So that does put that third pick a little more in play. One thing that was interesting in reading Jake's piece and a couple others, it was mentioned that VJ Edgecombe seems to be the player of interest at 3, whether it's for Philly, who reportedly had Maxey showed up for the workout with
Hmm.
Edgecombe. If they get Edgecombe, I'm very curious then, what does that mean for Quentin Grimes? Because you don't really need Maxey, McCain, Edgecombe, and Grimes. You don't need all
Sure.
4 of those guys. Again, it's almost like what we talked about with the Mavs. That's awesome. That'd be a killer backcourt, but like I don't need all of them. Like, we can work that out, especially if you're going to have Paul George who can swing down and play the two some still on the roster. So that's just kind of a side here. But not only Philly for Edgecombe at 3, Charlotte and Washington, who have multiple first, or Charlotte only has one first, but they have 2 very early seconds, and Washington has 2 firsts. There's a world where maybe they could look to trade up, and then Philly doesn't have to go back very far. You'd only go back 1 pick.
Right.
With Charlotte. If you could go back 1 pick and pick up 2 seconds, okay, I guess. Unless you love Edgecombe. Like,
I've seen that floated as a possible, just a guess at the reason for Philly's level of interest in Edgecombe is knowing that the teams behind them have that. And so this is a, hey, if you want him, you're going to have to trade up with us to come get him type of thing, because otherwise we'll take him. They're trying to present themselves as a real threat to take him so that teams like Utah or Washington, somebody else, maybe Charlotte, trades up to go get Edgecombe.
Yeah, and now we're hearing, just as we were starting the show, Jake Fisher reported they are bringing in Ace Bailey for a workout as well. So now you get Ace Bailey in there, and now that further adds to the intrigue. Or, all right, hey, we're happy to take Ace Bailey if you really want him, which one of the rumors that's been out there is Utah's kind of interested in Bailey because Utah feels like they have a couple good guards. Maybe they could go get Bailey to be the wing scorer that they really kind of need. So it's just, this is the fun part of it, right? It's kind of now we're into what could happen with these. And because it's Philly in their specific situation, there's just so many more options that they have, which makes it a lot more fun for them because it doesn't make sense to just stick and pick a guy where they are, because you can have very real trade opportunities where it is, yeah, move back, pick up some other assets, flesh out our depth a little bit, even save a little bit of money if we move back far enough. Like, all those things can help.
Yep, absolutely. So it's going to be interesting to see what Philly does with that pick there. Really, you look at 1, 2, and 3 in this draft, and they're not the typical teams that you would expect to see at the top of a draft, given that all 3 of them have reasonable paths to winning and likely paths to winning and really being true playoff teams right now. These are not situations where players would step into an immediate team that's going to be losing for the foreseeable future, like they would had some other teams moved up. So, or
right
stay
now,
put anyway.
Utah, Washington, and New Orleans, like, yeah, no kidding, Lane. Thanks for rubbing it in. Salt in the wound, dude. We drop back. Yeah, we know. You don't need to tell us.
I mean, it's what happened, but this is the repercussions of changing the lottery odds, and you did it to try to get rid of tanking. And in that sense, I mean, your tankiest team got punished as strongly as they possibly could, dropping all the way down to the 5th pick with Utah. So,
Washington, I do feel legit bad for, because they were just bad.
Who's that? Washington?
Yeah, Washington. Yeah. They drafted 3 guys in the first round last year and played those 3 guys every single night that they were healthy and played them a good amount of minutes. And just, they were your normal, typical bad young team. Did they play some games with Chris Middleton and Marcus Smart and Jordan Poole? Yeah, but that was in like the last month of the season when it was clear, like, all right, hey, a couple other teams are coming for our lottery odds here. I don't have a problem in the last month of the season, whatever. Even good teams are playing games with their roster then, because then they're like, we don't want to get anybody hurt. Right. But yeah, I do feel a little bit bad for them. Utah, I'm struggling to feel super bad for them, because the prior 2 years, you pulled the rug out from under your team and your fans when you could have been a play-in tournament team. I get it. It's not your ultimate goal. You don't want to be a play-in tournament team, but I don't know. Just felt a little bit like, all right, you want to keep doing this, basketball gods are going to rise up and punish you a little bit here.
That's what's happened here to Utah. And I suppose you can question whether or not, like, you should be in like, should the NBA restructure things so it isn't a decision of the play-in or our lottery odds? Like, if there's a way to kind of finagle that. But nonetheless, the system is what it is, and the teams who moved up are teams that the top 3 are teams that all 3 of them conceivably could be well in the thick of things in their respective conferences for playoff spots. So we could see some young players who are immediately on the big stage, this time next year, and trying to really compete. So that'll be really interesting to see how that whole dynamic plays out, because that's one way that this draft is maybe a little bit different than most years.
Yeah, and let's be very clear. I think Cooper Flagg's going to be awesome.
Sure.
I think Dylan Harper is going to be awesome, but there's no guarantee picking at the top of the draft is any really all that much better than picking fifth. Like it, even dude, there's some stuff out there. Let's hope for the Spurs and Dylan Harper's sake that the second pick, like the history of the second pick, is not great. If you go through the years, it's often pretty rough. KD was one of the real counter examples to that. But yeah, I mean, Utah should still come away with a really good player and figure it out. You just didn't get Cooper Flagg. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. And but things happen, as they say. Forrest Gump wore a whole T-shirt about it.
That's right.
Made a lot of money.
That's right. All right.
There it is. I worked right at the buzzer. I worked in our 90s movie reference.
Got it done. Got it done. All right. Everybody, thank you so much for joining the show. Make sure that you do subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office Show on YouTube. Got a lot going on this time of year around the NBA, so hit that subscribe button. Follow us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts as well. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.